welcome back, guys. Yeah. Moral of the story, okay? Moral of the story here is, when it's the end of the world and things are tough, things are difficult, you need a whorehouse. Sounds weird. I know. I didn't want to do it. I did not want to do it. But I will tell you what, I had a couple assumptions when we ended the last playthrough, and they were decent, but they were definitely not the main problem. The main problem, guys, was motivation. Okay? Motivation. As soon as I get out of this technology tree screen, I will show you that bar. It is a little yellow bar at the bottom. That guy, which is about half full right now. You're going to want to watch that as we speed through the second playthrough here. I will say, this game is so punishing and so rewarding for learning that the second time when I played through it, it only took me a couple hours, and it was mega enjoyable. So I'm fairly positive that's the goal of this game in terms of what they want for their players, and mission accomplished. It is so satisfying to play through again after you just got your ass beat like I did. So secondly, guys, there is a bar in the bottom left. It's a pretty prominent bar, and it's got some milestones on it, and those milestones tell you exactly how much time you have left before you need to complete each stage of the generator. Who knew? I think I looked directly at it, rolled my mouse right over it, and said, I have no idea when I'm supposed to complete this. So was able to see that as well, and I am happy to report that I actually did get ahead of the first checkpoint this time, and I believe I got us back to where we were in almost 10 days shorter or so. Maybe not quite that much, but I believe we were on day 25, and I'm pretty sure at the end of this video we're at day 17, 18, something like that. So did much better. Let's see, some other learns. So I think we did pretty well. We just really missed motivation. So motivation, they'll work at 100% efficiency in the middle, and then they'll work 25% slower when it's below that bottom line, and they'll work 25% faster, or maybe it's 30% on both sides when it's above the top line. So there you see I actually bought the pleasure house without thinking twice about it at all. Just so you guys know as well, there is, I mentioned in the first, I think the first episode, second episode, that I was surprised there wasn't going to be disease, and it does come back to bite you in the butt, literally and figuratively, that you do get disease, but it's really not that bad. Another thing I realized too is that there's a crazy decision. Actually, I'll bring that up when we come to it in the video. Just interesting way the mechanics work to where you can get around some things. This game is brutally punishing in terms of not knowing. If you don't know, you get your ass handed to you, and then once you know, it's like, oh, that's super easy now. So let's see what else. So first balloon, first shipment in from England. I got 20 workers, I believe. So I did not mess around with that. That's one thing that I think I was accurate on in my assessment when we lost last time, is that we need people, and we need people fast. In the first Frostpunk, you kind of get them trickling in, and then you have a hard time feeding them, etc. I was worried about food the entire game, and we'll see if food becomes an issue, but I have quite a bit stockpiled by the end of this, so I don't know if that's as big of an issue as it is in Frostpunk, the original. So I'm willing to say that it is not. So here I am picking up some more things. Also the bathhouse. Excuse me. So the bathhouse, I believe, is a waste of early coal. You do get some sick people here and there, but it's so easy to deal with. I don't believe it's worth the 75 coal per day. So I waited on that. I eventually did get it though, because I was getting sick people coming in eventually. So, but I got it when I could afford it a little bit better. So tons of people coming in. Let's see. I think we did pretty good with our scouts, our foragers, in terms of sending them out and doing it quickly. I think we actually did it a little too quickly, to be honest, because by the end of it, we had nowhere to go. And so we could save that tech for other things later. So that is cool. Another thing, guys, is the forestry. It's a very big deal to get space from those trees and to try and utilize and spend that wood as soon as possible. So I feel like I did quite a bit better job this time around with that. I actually had 3 going at all times, so that's 30 workers at all times chopping down trees. And what ended up happening was I actually got ahead of the curve with that, to where by the time I got to the point of I actually didn't use, or I got the, you can actually see it right there. I got the technology to increase the speed once, but I did not get the steam-powered forester units. So, which maybe it could have been faster eventually, and I got my workers back, but for the most part, every technology takes the same amount of time to learn, even the higher tiers. So if you have tier 2 technology and tier 3 technology, when you do either one of them, it takes the exact same amount of time, which I find interesting because that's not normal for games like this. So what would have happened is I would have wasted 2 technologies to get steam powered, and then I think there's one more advancement after steam powered. So I don't think I'm going to be getting that in the entire playthrough, because I'm actually almost out of trees by the time this thing is done. So did a much better job with that. Food was ballin' literally the entire time. I have way more than enough food. I believe there's 3 or 4 different sites where you can get food from. That's 80 food by turn. And if you're on the normal meal settings, that is double for the prepped meals. And so 80 raw food is 160 prepped meals. And that will feed 160 citizens, which is quite a bit. So if you've got 3 of those, that is worth, what is that? 240, 580 citizens, which is stupid. That is so much. They do run out. Mine still haven't run out actually in the game though. One of them is like 15 days, which is a ton of time. I think we're on day 17 by the time I end this, so. What else? Ended up doing the same setup with the docks and the fishing harbors. I did 2 and 2. I was able to actually get up to the highest level of the pile management. They cost 2 cores a piece, and they're very expensive, but man, do you pull in tons of resources with that. It's kind of currently where I'm at, actually, is trying to get the pulling in resources from the docks as fast as humanly possible, because essentially they're there for you all game. They don't cost anything, and so if there's a bottleneck with those, then you are missing resources the entire time. And I feel like that's probably one of the biggest features of the game, is trying to open up that bottleneck of the docks. So as they come in trying to get more and more resources, and if you can get them on full blast, the longer you have them on full blast, the more resources you'll have for the entire game. So yeah, let's see, I was worried about the telegraph system, and I was worried that I waited too long to use it, but that is actually not a thing. It will build up over time, and as long as you use it you know, if it's full, I'm sure they'll alert you, but mine was never full, and so I didn't waste one of those at all. What I did do, however, was order 2 cores early on. Cores are worth 20, whereas citizens are worth 2. So each core is worth 10 citizens, or 10 workers. So, and that would be 3.3 engineers. So I think that was maybe not a waste, but definitely too soon. It's kind of like in a strategy game where you want to boost your workers up. So think StarCraft or something similar to that. If you can get a really good economy going early on, then you worry about your bigger stuff later. And what I did was kind of like rush to starport out, you know, the equivalent of that. And so my economy is hurting the whole game for it. So 10 workers is insane. That's a ton of manpower that I could be using the entire game to do stuff. Instead, I had 2 cores just sitting there, I believe. So didn't do too bad on that. Let's see. So motivation. I've Googled this, but I don't believe that, you know, last time when we were looking at it, when we rolled our mouse over it, it said, you know, 1 negative effect, and it was shelter. It says that from the beginning of the game. So I don't know, that's a very confusing message, but I don't believe that's anything specific that we need to worry about. I would say though that mine was blinking, right? So motivation was blinking, and I think it was blinking just because it was below the bar. But I will tell you guys, I didn't do that much different, okay? I had the churches, I was hitting the church button more often, so that was something, but that wasn't a ton. You can see right now it's almost capped. I got the pleasure house, man. Literally, like if you look at my policies, they're not different. I don't think they're different at all, except for the pleasure house. So I'm really confused to think that the pleasure house actually gives that much motivation, and it would be that different. The other thing that I considered, but I didn't know if this was actually a thing, is that the lower, possibly the lower the motivation gets, the harder it is to raise. And so when you have high motivation, it's actually really easy to keep it high, but when you have low, it's almost impossible to get it back up. And if that's the case, that's a crazy mechanic, and that sinks you into a hole. But I find it very difficult to believe that one pleasure house like changed the entire game from having a full motivation bar versus a empty one. And that was the main difference between this game and the last game, for sure. When you're working 60% faster with everything that you do, it's going to make a difference after so much time. So definitely a thing there. All right, so what else did we get into? What else did we learn? You can see I started my city on the right side, and there's a ton of space on the right side immediately. So it allowed me to build a lot more houses right off the bat and still save room for the forestry units and I don't know what those are called, lumber mills, I guess. Versus having to sort of squeeze it in the top area there. So let's see, House of Disease. I can't really see the screen, guys. It's really small for me. I'm doing a voiceover here, but so another thing I noticed was some of the policies. You know, when you look at them, they have like a couple limbs grayed out. So it's like if I go to this one, then I can maybe go to the grayed out one next. And then some of them, when you open one up, it actually reveals other paths, other lines that were not there at all. Like they weren't grayed out, they were just invisible. And so the whole time there were decisions to make about whether I want to feed people good meals or shitty meals, or if I wanted to cram people into houses or to give them more space. And so I was thinking, like, I don't want to do either. This is working just fine. But little did I know that if I chose one of those, it would actually open up into a further tree. And so what I ended up doing was actually opening up the, let's see if I can remember here. It was the medical treatment. So it was saying, are we going to amputate people or are we going to put them in a home? So I chose put them in a home, and then that opened up this whole tree that led to prosthetics. So at some point I could actually purchase prosthetics from the telegraph system and outfit my people with them that had lost their limbs. So kind of interesting. There's the big boom. So you can see we're already back there. It's been 16 minutes. I know it's sped up, but it was really only like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. So that was when it was all going bad last time. And it's kind of funny. Look at that. I'm actually mousing over. If you look in the bottom left, you can see the timeline with giant milestones on it. A red line approaching. I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on. So it's kind of funny that I was literally talking shit to the game when it booted me out. I think I said, that's great. Can I, do you want me to read anything else, or can I just play the game? And then like immediately after I said that, it was like, you're fired. So I felt like real life there. You talk back to your boss and then get booted out of the game. So I think this is probably supposed to happen. I would imagine a lot of you guys playing the game probably ran into the same thing, or not. I just totally missed the deadline. I didn't know quite what was going on. I didn't understand the motivation. So I would imagine if you're playing Frostpunk for the first time, you're absolutely going to run into this. Otherwise, man, props to you. And I think it's the way the devs intended it. As I recall, when I played the original Frostpunk, and I'm sure you guys have experiences, many of you have experiences as well, is you lose the first game and you probably lose the second game too. That's the way the devs designed it. I love that personally. It's like they are billions, and to be honest, I don't know many other games like that other than games that you would play in hardcore, which I love to do. So when this game is like, yeah man, you didn't cut it, you need to start over, and they force you to start over, you get pissed off, but then you're like, for me personally, I'm like, hell yeah, this is a good game. I don't know if you guys can relate, but for me, one of the most enjoyable experiences is starting over in a game. If you're kind of frustrated at what you're at and you're sort of at a max capacity of pulling in information, and you get to start over and just relax and take everything that you've learned and then apply it to the game now, that's what gaming is all about. It kind of reminds me of, games way back in the day that were very brutal like that, right? And so when you restart the entire game, like Super Mario, or not Super Mario, but Mario 1.1, things like that. I was got into gaming around that time in the early 90s, so it really strikes a chord with me, and it's cool to see a lot of games now sort of recognizing that you've got adults playing these games that don't need their hand held and want something difficult, and Frostpunk absolutely delivers when it comes to that. So it was upsetting, but it also felt good, and it felt super good to come back into the game and just rage through it in a couple hours. Yeah. So going forward, guys, we are going to continue the series. The game is not the same as it was when we died, obviously, but it's pretty similar. I try to get it really close to where it was. The thing is, though, we are ahead of time, which is great. Excuse me. We have a lot more resources, and I think we're just so much more set up to succeed. Like I said, I got the first milestone done, and I think you can see it, or I'm about to do it. It looks like I'm about to do it right now. And this was actually still down to the wire. So taking everything I learned, restarting, really being careful about it, I still only did it within a day. So yeah, there it is, milestone achieved. So Something else to talk about would be maybe the health issues. So I think I said before, we could just max out infirmaries, treat a lot of sick, but this time I didn't have a lot of sick people, and it's because I understood the different modifiers to the gas. So you definitely want one of those gas filtration systems down. You've also got short shift, which will decrease the health risk by 1. You've got the careful working, which will decrease the health by 1, and that just reduces the efficiency by 25%. You've also got the structural support, which cost 8 of the things you make with wood. I forget what they're called. But those are 3 different levels that you can drop at 4 different levels. 3 different levels within the building and then 1 outside with the gas. That's 4 levels you can drop it. And even if the gas is at full blast, it's still somewhat safe to get in there. The other thing that I did was actually rush infirmaries out. So I call the medical tents infirmaries, but those are not infirmaries, those are medical tents. They hold 5 people, they heal people very slow, they can't heal gravely ill. The infirmaries heal people very fast, they hold 10 people, and they can heal the gravely ill. So I really rushed for that. That's in the third tier for tech. And that was, I think, the first thing I did in the 3rd tier. I rushed one of those out. And to be honest, I have not had many issues since then. There were a couple times when people did get very sick, but what I did is I just shut off the center production, essentially. As soon as I shut it off, I have 25 people sick or so, and I honestly just let them heal, and then I go from there. So before, I can't remember exactly what was happening, but it seemed like I was sending people to their death and I had no idea what I was even doing. So I would imagine, and we're a little over halfway through the game, but I would imagine that the health areas, right, so the gas is very similar to the cold. So the cold in original Frostpunk. So it was elements to fight, and it was getting your people sick, and you had to keep them warm, etc. Very similar here with the gas. So, elements getting people sick, and you have to, take precautions to ward against it, and sometimes you have to tell people to stay home instead of go to work. So I think that was a big part of it. So I don't believe, actually, did I get the second one? No, I didn't get the second one going yet. And actually this area right here, I just let things roll for a while before I got started. And when you do that, you have 50 extra workers. So you can really pump out the resources, go crazy with that, get all the docks working, get all your coal coming in, and just really stockpile a ton of resources. Let's see, I did not get a large stockpile either. I just used small ones. They seem to be just fine, and they fit perfectly around the outer edge of the inner ring. So that seemed to work just fine. What else? Yeah, I think that is about it. This is gonna wrap up here in just a little bit. And then, yeah, we're just gonna jump back in, start with episode, I think it'd be episode 14, and just continue on and do a little bit better this time. Hopefully things will kind of even out. You can see my motivation's been above that second bar the entire way through, and when that's the case, you're just absolutely flying. So yeah guys, appreciate you hanging in there with me. This series is definitely not over. I always worry when I die. I just activated Siri. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, drop a like below, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. It really helps to grow the channel out. I appreciate it, and we will catch you in the next one. Take care.